first video this week is going to focus on MLA, citation, and formatting for poetry. I've got a little goblin here, like always. So to start off, in case you didn't know, MLA stands for Modern Language Association. This association is a key group in the world of literature, writing, and generally the humanities. Therefore, they set the standards for how to use language academically and how to write when studying and examining language. It is worth noting that MLA is not the standard for every class. So while in literature and writing, you're most likely going to be using MLA, other classes and other disciplines like science and social studies often use APA, the American Psychological Association. So know that there's a difference. I'm not going to go over the other one because it doesn't matter to us right now, but knowing there is a difference will become important as you move throughout your academic career.
Kind of interesting, I didn't know that.
So, while many of you have mastered the foundations of MLA citation, especially when writing about prose is short stories and novels, text that mirrors more the way that we usually speak. So a lot of you are really good at MLA citation when writing about novels or short stories, but poetry is different. There are rules that apply only to poetry, and I want to make sure you know how they work so you can do well on this writing assignment and on future writing assignments about poetry as you move through high school. I'm going to take most of the time in this video to go over the virtual handout for this week titled Rules for Formatting Poetry Citations. This will be a key resource for you as you move forward with this poetry essay and potentially in the future if you're writing about poetry again. So you can get to this document through this week's lesson slides. And so you see at the top, how to quote poetry in MLA is the header here. What I want you to do first is scroll to the second page because you're going to see the poem that I used for all the examples in this document. He just wants to be on camera. Look at him. He's playing.
He's like, do they want to watch me play with my boyfriend?
They do want to watch you play. So referencing this poem is going to help you understand why I did certain things in different citations, and we'll get to that in a minute. So the basic guidelines when citing poetry are the same. You use quotation marks. You don't add extra spaces before or after the quotation marks. You have a parenthetical citation, right? That's the one that's in parentheses at the end of the quote. So the first example you can see is only for a single line of poetry. So remember, a line is marked by a space. After that goes on to the next line, it's pretty straightforward. So if it's just one line or part of one line, you would follow the first example, just kind of like a regular quote. The second example is about quoting over multiple lines of poetry. So anytime you have a piece of evidence in your piece of writing that goes on to the next line, you need to mark that line break with a forward slash. So you can see here the slash, and there's a space before it, the slash, and then a space after it. So it takes up that much of your quote. Don't add in extra spaces, don't take out the spaces. The third example in this document describes what to do if you're citing over a stanza break. So the line I'm using here goes over the end of one stanza and into the start of another. And so you can see I marked this with 2 forward slashes, and then the same spacing rules apply. So you have a space, your double slashes, and then another space, and then you continue on with your citation. There are other rules for citing more than 3 lines of poetry, but for this writing assignment, you shouldn't even be doing that. These poems are pretty short. If you're citing 3 or more lines, I want you to trim your quote down or find a new quote. But really, I don't want you to have long quotes for this. I care more about your evidence being really precise and shorter if possible. And then I want to go over this note for all citations. Make sure to use the same punctuation, capitalization, and styling as the original text. If a line ends in a comma, a period, a semicolon, or a dash, and that is the end of your quotation, you need to leave it out. Look back at the example for citing 2 or 3 lines and using the forward slash. You can see my quote, bark of yellow birch and yellow twig of willow. In the actual poem, there is a period after willow, but you can see that I haven't put it in my citation. There is only one exception to this, and it's with different types of punctuation. So the only time you should ever include the punctuation at the end of the line is if it's an exclamation mark or a question mark. This is super rare in poetry, so I'm pretty sure none of you are gonna have to worry about it for this assignment. The same is actually true for prose citations, just something to keep in mind. But in general, you are taking off any end punctuation at the end of the quote. A couple other notes in this document: author's name. So when you're quoting a poem, the author's last name must be clearly stated. You should be stating this in your introduction and likely throughout the text. You are always referring to the author by their last name. You do not know them. You don't call an author by their first name. They've worked really hard to get work published. It's a sign of respect, and you owe that to them. Next, line and page numbers in parenthetical citations. Remember, parentheses, parenthetical. So when there are line numbers given in the margin of the poem, which all of ours are because I put them there, use these to more precisely format your in-text citations. Use the word line or lines in the first citation only. So only that first piece of evidence should have line or lines, depending if it's one line or more than one line, in the parenthetical citation. So in my example here, you can see MLA line 1, but my subsequent examples wouldn't have that. The final thing is titles. Citing the title of a poem in your essay. You always put the title of a poem in quotation marks and format the punctuation and capitalization to match the original source. So you can see my example, Edna St. Vincent Millay's poem Counting Out Rhyme depicts a childlike fascination with the appearance of trees. And if you scroll down to, you can see that I have mirrored that formatting exactly. I have the capitalization the same and the dash is included. It's literally pulled right there. So you're never changing punctuation, adding spacing, anything like that. It has to be exactly like the original. Once you have watched this video and spent some time looking over these guidelines, your next task is to complete the MLA Poetry Citation assignment. This will be posted on Google Classroom and it is explained in the slides. I have included what I'm calling a reference document to help you understand what the assignment is asking of you. And Pinky, can I just have it for a minute, please? I've included this reference document, which is actually just a document version of the assignment, which you will be doing on Google Forms, but I did want to give you this document version so that you could see the formatting in its sort of true state. We've got that Times New Roman, size 12. I also thought it would be nice for you to look this over ahead of time. This is meant to be practice to help you master and learn these MLA citation skills as opposed to like testing you on them. So it's only 12 points. It's really meant for practice. I'll be assessing you more on your mastery of this as we move forward with the writing assignment. Also, I accidentally dressed like a minion today. I realized halfway through the day, I was like, what do I feel like? I was kind of like, maybe I'm like Arthur. And then I realized I was a minion. I'm just dressed like a minion. Well, that's all I got. Jack is still over here acting like a maniac. He just wants to be famous. Oh my God, he's fat. He's not fat, he's thick. He's a thick boy.
I'm sure he feels better when you call him thick. You're not fat, you're thick.
I'm thick too, it's okay, Bubby. Alright, bye everybody.
A student of error who can only prevail, 'cause learning is trying and trying is hard. When it feels like falling's gonna tear you apart, but now